I'm Danny.
My name is... Why'd you do that? Sorry.
My name is Daniel, and I'm a Korean American.
My name is TRAN, and I'm Vietnamese.
I would identify myself as a Korean American high school junior trying to just live my life in America.
I would identify myself as a Vietnamese American.
My father, he came to the U.S. around in the early 1990s, while my mother and my sister came in like the late 1990s.
My family came to America I think my dad came earlier, and my dad came in like the 80s, my mom came in like the late 80s. I feel like that has shaped my experience in a way where I'm very like in touch with like my like Vietnamese roots because of that.
My mother, she was a widow with her child, and she wanted to have a better life for herself and her child, while my father came to the U.S. to find job opportunities. Well, for me, I think I just grew up with normal Asian American household.
They both went to college, so I'm the second generation. I feel like it's a very unique experience to have in this country.
At least for me, since I am Asian American, people did think I was very smart. They also think I was more of a like quieter person. While although it does describe me in some way, especially with like close friends or like family, I am more social.
I think the prejudices I've faced as not even just a Vietnamese person, but as just someone who looks Asian, it's just I feel like a lot of people just assume that I'm extremely smart and things just kind of come easy to me. And not even just that like I have like my life together and I don't really like face any discrimination, because there's also like different ends of it, right? Because I feel like a lot of like white people could perceive me as like someone who's just like doing really like well and that just doesn't really need any extra like studying, or that I'm just like naturally smart, to put it in simpler terms. We still do face the struggles that minorities face. I mean, there's a bunch of prejudices I could just list. Smart thing, submissive thing.
What people have to understand is, although there might be some people who fit these stereotypes, there are also people who are, doesn't fit the typical Asian American stereotype.
There are also like a huge group of people who don't believe that Asian people are like beautiful. Like our eyes, our nose, our mouth, our skin, or just feels that like Asian people are just one person and we're all just all the same.
I think about it, there wasn't really anything that someone said to me or about my race that really affected me like very personally. I feel like the people I hanged out with, the people I grew up with, they did respect me as an Asian American. So
especially like with like Asian discrimination, it's never just one thing, it's everything like collectively. As I guess one of the worst things like I've experienced was when I went to DC with a couple of my friends. Two of them were Asian, one was Korean, one was Vietnamese, and then the other one was Hispanic, and we were in the National Art Museum, and there was just this old like white guy. He started yelling at us about how we should go back to our country and that we shouldn't have our iPhones because like the iPhones are only for like US, and how we shouldn't have American iPhones, but joke's on you because aren't iPhones made in like China, but sorry. And then he just started yelling at us about how we should go back to our country, about how we should take our like Korean language, or like
I guess the most hurtful thing would be, oh, I was mistaken as like, oh, maybe like Chinese or like Japanese or something like that.
Blah blah blah, just all the typical things like a racist person, I guess, would say just how we should just all go back to like where we came from and how we're just not making this country a better place, because I feel like you can never really like hear such blunt racism, and that was the first time I really experienced that, and it really shocked me just because we were in DC and we were in a public place. So before I moved to like the Antidote area, I used to live in Loudoun, and in Loudoun it's not like super like diverse. It's not also super white, but like I think I was one of the 3 Asian kids in my grade. So I just remember looking around and like feeling like growing up and like going to kindergarten, I just felt kind of different. I felt like I didn't look like the kids around me. And then from that, I feel like I just became extremely unconfident with the way I like presented myself. With that stereotype, I kind of just grew into that stereotype because I feel like a lot of Asian people, they're not necessarily like quiet or shy. It's just because like when you're the minority, you just don't feel as safe, I guess. When I moved into Annandale, I really like grew into myself when I was at North Springfield. And I became like really outgoing, really talkative, and really myself just because I was now around like people who looked like me. And it could also be due to the fact that I was just growing up, I guess, and just discovering myself. But to answer the question, the whole stereotype that like Asians are quiet and or like submissive is just really like subjective because I feel like everybody's just really different. I mean, if you just look back onto like our history of forcing Japanese Americans to internment camps, or looking back to like forcing Asians to build the railroad, it's just we were forced to be submissive, so there weren't worse consequences.
If I'm speaking about myself, I am more quiet and reserved, and sometimes I do stray away from leadership positions.
Yes, like some Asian people are quiet because of what has been instilled in them, but also yes, that everybody's their own person and everybody has different attributes, and that's never due to someone's race.
If I was grown up hearing other people saying, "Oh, since you're Asian, you're supposed to be like very social, very loud," and I guess that would have made me more extroverted. Sometimes when I was younger, I did take it as a compliment. I said, "Oh, maybe they are really calling me smart and all that." But as I grew up, I felt like this model minority myth, it hinders other people.
The model minority stereotype has affected me in a way, I think especially like academically, because I feel like even like in school, like whenever I do well on a test or something, it's just always like something that's like assumed, or like the other day, like I was like really stressing over a test, and then my friend was just like, "Oh yeah, like you'll do fine, like you're Asian." Like that kind of thing just can really like hurt, because it just feels like none of what you're doing is like validating, and none of what like what you work so hard is validating. Because if I'm being honest, like for me personally, like I've never really been the kind of student that can really pick up things really easily, because like I was in ESOL when I was younger. Like the only way that I kind of, I guess, like became better at math because my mom really like helped me when I was younger. But like it's never, like math has never been something that came easy to me. School has never been something that came easy to me, but it's just, for me personally, it's just something, like I just like push myself and I work hard. It's not just like easy where I don't have to study. And I feel like the model minority just diminishes like all of the work that I've put in and the determination, and just it doesn't all matter just because I'm Asian. Also just the fact that other races just see you as like someone who has like their life together.
Some people might need to feel that they need to reach this like high level standard, and if they don't, then people might say, oh, why aren't you being Asian? Some people may view it as like a more of a compliment. Others may view it as a box trying to keep them in from being who they really are. There is a different standard for Asian Americans. Since schools do want me more diverse and everything, as in with the model minority myth, it does set a higher standard for Asian Americans than, let's per se, other ethnicities/races.
They're limiting the amount of Asian Americans they are letting into their colleges is just stupid, because like, why are you trying to make your college based more on like what you want it to be than what it actually is? There's so many like Asian Americans that have to work so hard to get into college, but they have to be like twice as good as other applicants just because their skin color is their skin color. A lot of Asian Americans in our country today, it's not like we have like been here forever. Like, I'm second generation, so many people are first generation. Like, we haven't been here since freaking like George Washington, you know? But like, we're not treated with that same like standard that other children of immigrants are, because of how Asians have come into our society. And because a lot of the stuff is like culturally, because a lot of Asian parents are very like determined, and even like going back to like early on times where like Chinese people had to take bureaucracy based exams. What are they called again?
Yeah, like Confucianism.
Yeah, they had to take those Confucian exams to be able to mean something in society, and that is where a lot of it stems from. But why should we be punished for working hard? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. The simple like sentence of there's too many Asians at this college, like we need to be more selective of the ones we choose, like that is something that needs to be changed.
I am very in touch with my culture. I did grow up having a lot of Korean influence. Growing up in a Korean household with both parents being Korean and living in Korea and being born in Korea. At home, I do speak Korean, so I feel like that, and coupled with celebrating certain Korean holidays, Korean culture in general, it kind of defines me who I am.
So Vietnamese actually used to be my first language until I started going to like school and stuff, and then I kind of lost that side, and my Vietnamese speaking skills really suffered because of that. And now I can only really like understand a lot of Vietnamese, but I can't really speak it, I can't read it, and I can't write it for the most part. I also feel like as I got older, a lot of traditions that like I used to do and that I guess could be perceived as like more like Vietnamese have diminished with that, but I feel like a lot of that kind of thing, like speaking and like just doing the basic things that Vietnamese people do, doesn't define like how Vietnamese you are and how in touch with your culture you are. And as I've been getting older, I've just been more proud to be where I'm from and to have all the history that I have. And I'm very in touch with like where my family came from, the history behind it, what like my ancestors had to struggle for me to be in the place I am right now, for me to even be like talking to this camera right now, you know?
I feel like I fit into society pretty well, but there are certain times where I feel like I am distanced from like society in general, especially when we're talking about like American like pop culture and everything. Sometimes I don't really follow like the latest hits and everything, so if others are talking about oh, did you check out like this new song by so and so? Sometimes I do kind of feel left out.
So I feel like it's very subjective of how like that, like the question, like how do I as an Asian American fit into society? Because there's like society wants me to be integrated into with like what like American like culture is, and instead of being very like in touch with like my roots, like American culture become my roots, because I feel like that's how the majority of society wants me as an Asian American to fit in and to not be as in touch. But I feel like for me personally, I feel like the way I fit into society, it's like cheesy, but I just want to like leave the world better like than the place that it was before. And that's not me as like an Asian American, that's me as a person. English. I honestly...
At home, I speak mainly Korean. The only person who I don't really speak Korean with is my sister, since she does know English. But with my mom and dad and my grandmother and my uncles and aunts, I speak Korean with all of them. Although I do speak Korean at home, I feel more comfortable with English. It's easier for me to convey my emotions and feelings in English than in Korean. Since I grew up listening to American television and growing up in America,
I know for a lot of Asian people, or just honestly just like immigrant families in general, like you'll most likely speak a lot more of your native language if you have like a grandparent in the house. And for me personally, like both of my grandparents have died pretty early on, so that's not something. Definitely when I was younger, like I spoke a lot more like Vietnamese at home. It's interesting because for me, like as I got older, I've been a lot more proud of my Vietnamese heritage and balancing like my American side and my Vietnamese side. But also for like my parents in general, like they are a lot more in touch with their American side as they got older, so that's why we predominantly speak more English. And honestly, like we only really speak Vietnamese if we have like family members in the house, but that's not anything to like be ashamed about, because we're speaking like English, but we're still like wholeheartedly in the Vietnamese household. Like the culture, the manners, like everything, like it's very Vietnamese.
Most of my friends are Asian American. I do feel more comfortable with Asian Americans. I feel like since we did come up with a similar background, we could relate with each other more, and there isn't that cultural awkwardness with others. If I do try to explain something to someone else who isn't Asian American, they might not really understand, and if they tell me about something about their culture, I might not really understand.
Like, there's just so many people, so many Asian people you can talk to and just share your experiences, and from there it's just already like a bond, you know? It's the community, it's just knowing that you're not like really alone and there's somebody else to have your experiences, and hearing other people's perspectives on things. And
being with Asian Americans, it does have that comforting factor, as in we did come up the same way. We do have very similar cultures.
My culture's food, like wholeheartedly, because
I enjoy both Korean food and American food.
Okay, sorry, but like American food kind of sucks. American food is everyone else's food with oil, if that makes sense. Like, sorry to like offend, but like, okay, I like American food is sometimes good, not gonna lie. Like, sorry, I can't think of anyone that's top of my head.
At home, I do mainly eat Korean food because both my parents, they don't really like American food.
Some American food is good, like don't get me wrong, like some of like the classics, like, you know, 4th of July food, you could say.
But since I did grow up in America, there are a lot of American foods that I do like. the typical like hamburgers, or, like Big Macs, or like pizza and chicken and everything. I feel like Korean food is very great. If anyone has a chance to try it, I highly recommend it.
But Vietnamese food is bomb. I love it. Like honestly, like if I like went back to like, you know, like before I was born or something, and just been like, no, like this is not who I want to be. Like
Being Asian American is something that I am very grateful of, and I feel like it's something that, especially in America, not many others have the same experience as me. So I feel like it makes me somewhat unique.
I 100% love being an Asian American. Like even with all of like the prejudices and all of like the issues like I have encountered like with it, there's nothing about it that like I would ever like change, because there's so much culture behind it, so much history, so much just love behind it, and so much family comfort. Like I could just list so many things that just come with being an Asian American. It's just, there's just so much love behind it, and like there's just when you like see like another like a Vietnamese person or just an Asian person, it's just like knowing you have like something in common, and that you have like some kind of common ground, and there's just so much that comes with it, like food, the way you see the world, like it just affects everything, and like there's nothing about it that I would ever change.
All in all, I feel like I am very proud of being Korean. I am very proud of how I grew up with. I feel like Korea as a whole, it did grow into one of the largest economies in the world in such a short amount of time, I feel like. So I am very proud of that.
I'm really proud that like I am like of like Vietnamese descent, and that like there's just so much history that goes along with like my last name and like me as like a person in general. Like there's just so much of like being a Vietnamese person that they don't really teach you at like school, you know, like especially like learning about like the Vietnamese War, like Vietnam War is just, it's not like, it's just, there's so much to be proud of. Like I don't know how to explain, there's just so much of it to be proud of. Like there's just so much history behind it, so much strength, so much courage, and it's just something that like, I don't know, you really have to like feel it, because there's so much to be proud of, I guess, so much to be proud of. Even just the simple act of my parents coming here for a better life for me, like that alone, like after the Vietnam War, like what is there like not to be proud of, I guess is what I'm saying.
There are things that I may not be proud of Korea. They do follow stereotypes very harshly at times. If you are, let's say, African American in Korea, they might not view you the same way as they would view, let's say, another Korean.
My favorite thing about being like a Vietnamese American, like there's just so much, like I said before, like there's just so much history behind everything, and I think my favorite part is just like the sense of like community that that your heritage can bring. Meeting
many different people, new people. There are a lot of different cultures in Asia, so I feel like if I met someone another person who is Asian, I feel like I have a certain connection with them.
Just how many like friends I've had, not because of Vietnamese, but just because of like how much we can like have in common. I don't know how to explain it, but it's community. Family is another big one. It's just all the core of being an Asian American in this country and sharing that experience with other people is just really amazing.
Another thing I really like about being Asian is the food. There's so much good Asian food. There's like, you have like Korean food, you have like Chinese food, you have like Thai, like, there's also Indian, there's like Japanese, and like there's just being Asian, it really opens your mind into the different possibilities of different cultures there are. Having a cultural background of Korean and having lived in the US for basically my whole life, it gives me a certain viewpoint of the world that some others may not have. And I feel like that is one of the best things about being Asian.
That's it. Is that it?